Well, we have 140 people connected. James and Andrew, look, 90% of the people that are on the line right now are creative zone clients. They're people that have their own companies, they're startups, they're entrepreneurs. There are many of them maybe at the starting or in the middle of their journey when it comes to their businesses. To the attendees out there, we would like to encourage you all to put your questions in the Q&A box so that we start raising those up. Any questions that you have for James and Andrew as we go along, we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear your questions so that we can put them across. But then let's get right to it, guys. So what kind of tips can we give for startups and entrepreneurs that are launching their businesses, that they recently got started, and they need to start nurturing those leads? Yeah. They need to create this pipeline to start generating business. James, what would you say are the first few sort of steps that they need to take in this journey?
So Lorenzo, one of the key things, and it's almost, well, this is right at the beginning, is kind of where do you start? And I think in terms of where you start, you have to look internally first. It's really important because the number of businesses we've sat and spoken to where you ask the question, do you know your product? Do you know your market? Do you know the processes around your product? And do you know your competition? And you need to ask the question, why? So why are you selling at this price? Why are you selling into this market? Why are you going for these types of customers? Because if you don't know these questions, you could potentially be missing opportunities, or your product might be kind of actually placed in the wrong sector or in the wrong space, and then you're already behind the curve on that. There's a number of businesses we've sat down with and discussed this with, and actually kind of sometimes change their strategy when it is the kind of go-to-market, just because they haven't been asking themselves these kind of difficult questions. A lot of the time, the entrepreneurs have a great idea, of which I've had a few and failed. And the reasons why you fail is on several points, and a lot of it is because you don't understand the market you're actually kind of selling into. It might be the wrong product, it might be the wrong time, it might be the wrong price. Mm. So for me, the first step is actually fully understanding your product. Mm. Sure that you're putting it forward in the right manner, at the right price, to the right people. Because it might be you're missing a totally different market that you haven't actually thought about.
Is this a challenge that we face many times, Andrew, that people don't fully understand what is the market, the target market that they're going after?
Yeah. I mean, I think James is 100% right. You know, the amount of times that we sit down with people and they may be blissfully unaware that there may be 2 or 3 competitors in the market already, where they've come up with an idea and they've launched something. They're very passionate about it, but they haven't, you know, effectively that kind of housekeeping or foundational work hasn't been done. So I think the thing is that people tend to sometimes focus on some of the other things, like, okay, I get an office, I get a website, I get, you know, some of the tick boxes, and then when you actually take a deep dive into, well, you know, who are your customers? Who would you like to attract? You know, have you got a plan as far as these are the clients or customers that I want from day one? These are the ones that I want to bring in month 3, month 4. So I think you really have to understand who your target audience or your ideal customer profile, you know, who is that ideal customer? Because ultimately, if you don't know, as James said, you know, who you're targeting and what you're targeting with, as far as messaging and, you know, communication, it's going to be very difficult to try and generate that business. You know, it's not just open the doors and you know, we're here. I think it's almost like there's sometimes a mentality of, you know, I've opened a restaurant, right? Everyone's going to come into my restaurant. Well, I haven't got any food, but, you know, come in, right? So there's got to be substance. So I think that's important.
Using that example in a restaurant business, how much of its business would be coming from online, from social media activations, from word of mouth? Do you guys have some statistics that you can start putting on the table and sharing? Look, if you own this type of business, this is the right mix that you should be capturing for putting sort of a word out there of who you are. Yeah,
I mean, look, I think from a restaurateur perspective, the challenge obviously really is that you again, it doesn't matter if you're a restaurant or, you know, you're a floor polishing company or whatever. The fact is that you have to have something to offer, something to give. The fact that you're just a restaurant isn't enough, because, you know, here, for example, there is thousands of restaurants. So there has to be something that there's a hook Because the fact is, even if you use, and social media obviously is a great way to attract, people to your business. Still, word of mouth referral is huge. I like this restaurant, etc. But you really need to have something, and that may be location, it may be an offer at the moment because people are hurting. It may be just excellent customer service. Whatever that is, there has to be a hook to enable you to promote something. Because just saying, "Hey, we're a restaurant, we're open," is just like saying, "Hey, we're Nexa, come and work with us." Why, right?
And that needs to be, then just backing that up, there has to be a differentiator, especially in this market. Everyone's busy. Why would you call one person over the next person? Why would you go to this restaurant over the next kind of restaurant? And it has to do with, okay, what is that hook? What is the differentiator in your business? Because a lot of people see is, okay, can you go and sell this for us? It's like, okay, you do. Why is it different? What are the P's? Because if you just go, okay, we have this product, please go and sell it for us, it's very difficult. You have a USP behind it. It might be a small USP, but it has to be something that gets somebody's attention, because everyone's busy. We all receive 20, 30, 40 phone calls a day from the financial services market, from wherever. And there just has to be that hook and differentiator. Otherwise, you just go, yeah, not interested.
Right now, so I'm picking up a few bullets here out of what we're bringing up. We talked about the market. Who is your target audience and what's your market possibility? You're talking about the message now. How important is to transfer that message?
Yeah.
What are the other bullets coming in this equation? What else is important?
Yeah, I think obviously just you do have the ability, because the world is, more online now than ever. I think you do have the ability to really showcase yourself, your products, your company, your organization, your brand, etc., your services in different ways now. So, presenting, it's not just a website or having social media, it's looking at things like this, right? Webinars. You have the ability to fire up a webinar to your particular audience and produce content on the back of it. You have the ability to produce your own videos. You can do small animation. You can do a podcast. You've got a phone, you download an app called Anchor, and you can create your own podcast. So the fact is that these tools have always been here and been available, but there's that tendency in the past is, physical, but now everything is moving online. I mean, I'll be honest, even for myself, the very first time I pitched to somebody in this environment, it was odd. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel comfortable. It was kind of, a bit strange. What's worse actually is if someone doesn't have their camera on. So that's terrible. So just a bit of a tip as a bullet, make sure that when you're communicating with people, you have a camera on. But I think that over time you get used to it, and then you start to, really understand that space. So that's important. It's important to have a web presence. Even if you are a restaurant or people still Google, okay? Having an Instagram account is just not enough, or having a LinkedIn profile or Twitter profile. You need a foundation. You need somewhere for somebody to go, or you need, if you're running campaigns, you need to drive traffic somewhere. Yeah. That's important as well from the foundations.
Lorenzo, I'd also say as well that everybody, from the digital piece, everyone decides to maybe throw up an advert or do this and expects miracles. I kind of call it, we need to look at intelligent marketing, because purely throwing up an ad on a Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, it's not going to generate kind of life-changing customers for you. There has to be an intelligent marketing strategy that, again, obviously if I'm kind of an offline person, there has to be a mix, especially in the B2B part of this world, that there needs to be a funnel of intelligent marketing where you start and you can see people through different stages and pull people through those different stages, because you have to touch people 10, 15, 20 times before they kind of connect or remember you. So that one-time ad that you might spend 5,000 dirhams, 10,000 dirhams, to be honest, it goes into this black hole of marketing spend that you just don't get back. There has to be in terms of whether you work with an agency or you have somebody in-house, there has to be a plan behind it. Because if there's no plan, you can waste a huge amount of money. But in the reality, you're just going into that ether of the other 10, 15, 20,000 companies who are doing the same thing. So with the tools available these days across the likes of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, the insights you can get and the ability to drag people through a sales pipeline from somebody never knowing you initially, to someone seeing you, to someone taking an interest in you, to someone, and we call it a marketing qualified lead, where someone shows an interest, whether they put the name into an online form or to give your phone number, all the way down to a sales qualified lead where someone actually speaks to them, understands their requirements, sees there as budget, they're the right person, there's a timeline, etc. And that takes time, and that's a process. So days where you can throw up and spend a lot of money expecting results, because that's just not going to happen anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. Good point, James. We are having a lot of very good questions coming from the audience. I'm going to start reading a few, but truly, I really want to encourage everybody to keep on putting your questions out. We will continue reading them out. We have 150 attendees out there at the moment. Thank you, everybody, for connecting. Let's talk about channels. Let's talk about the different platforms. I think there's a very good question here from Stephen from Quintessential Quarters. I actually know Stephen personally. He owns a vacation homes portal. It has been a very up-and-coming business in the last 1 or 2 years. He's saying, what is your opinion of generating business leads via social media? More specifically, what social media channels are the best for generating leads nowadays for estate owners, investors looking to do short-term lending, etc.?
So I can take this. Yeah, look, I think first and foremost, let's understand why people go on social media. People go on social media to look at cats, catch up with their family, catch up with their friends. In my social media feed, it's full of fried chicken. That's my social media feed is. So any kind of advertising in that space is disruptive in the sense I don't go to Instagram to look for ads, right? Or I don't go to Instagram potentially specifically around travel. There is definitely an inspirational wanderlust where people will go and use Instagram, for example, to look for those different activities. But it really goes back to the fact that from a social perspective, even LinkedIn, people don't go there to look for something. Okay. So, lowest hanging fruit is always Google. Yeah. And in the Google environment, you obviously have a couple of options as far as organic. So if you're investing, I'd strongly suggest you look at that kind of search engine optimization. We call it search engine ownership, actually, but you look at that space. So you start to build your presence. And in the meantime, potentially looking at Google ad budgets. Now, the challenge specifically around travel and tourism is obviously in that space is dominated by all the other big boys, the OTAs, the Booking.coms, the travel, TripAdvisor, etc. So you kind of have to think of different ways to target those individuals. And a lot of it may be that personalized experience that perhaps they're offering at Quintessential and then customizing that approach. I think this goes back though to the fundamentals. If, for example, I want to be targeting, let's say, I'm a coffee shop and I want to specifically target locals, right? So Emiratis. I'd go to Instagram. I'd go to Snapchat. I would do geographical pin drops in Khawanij, Khadia, and Abu Dhabi, and Khalifa City. So you've got to kind of be guided by who your audience is again, right? So who do you want to target and how do you want to target them? And then also if you do have a limited budget, don't, spread it too thin. Go after a particular audience that you feel is going to engage with you, and then use social media for retargeting. So if you're driving them back to the site, as James mentioned, they need that touch point, 15, 16 times. So that touch point can be a retargeted message. So, very specific, you've gone to the site, and that's what happens for most people. Most people don't realize, that, I was looking at that, those golf clubs the other day and they've just popped up and I can see them again, right? That's where, you start to use that a bit more intelligently from a retargeting perspective. But when it comes to B2B, in all honesty, the only place that you can specifically target individuals by company size and title, etc., is LinkedIn. And they know that, and then the most expensive ad platform.
James, where are the best places to put your money nowadays for capturing those leads? What's the right mix of social media, Google AdWords? Where is it happening nowadays?
Okay. Well, from my point of view, because I am the kind of the offline person here, it's we've been working with some of the offline pieces and more with Nexa and Andrew and Amit and the team. I think it's from my point of view, depending on what you want, and I'm kind of purely coming from a B2B perspective here, it is that you can target people, as you say, through the LinkedIn piece. People are interested, but I still feel that there is the space that people like to be spoken to. And I think that a cold call is never easy. If you're calling somebody who never heard of you before, it's the wrong time, it's the wrong kind of moment of the day, then it's tough. But if you've targeted correctly online, and it can come through LinkedIn, it can come through Facebook if they've seen it, and then when you speak to them offline and be able to give them a bit more information, we're getting great results from that. So I'm very much a believer in this journey, in this online offline journey, the intelligent marketing that I go back to, because I think in my previous comment, the amount you look at Facebook's annual or quarterly results, I'd love to see how much money of that, or how much of their profits were actually kind of came from wasted ads that actually nothing came from. It would be an enormous, because people just aren't intelligently spending their money. They're experts. I'm no expert on this. Andrew and his team at Nexa are experts, so I would those guys. But I certainly think if there's a small business out there, or well, a small business or any business where you're not too sure what you're doing, but you know that there's 20 grand in your budget per month to spend, but you're not too sure how to spend it or where you're spending it at the moment, it's definitely talking to an expert, because you can probably spend less and get better results. And from what Andrew says, the Google, I know it sounds strange with the social media piece now, but Google is probably the most powerful place to spend your money right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's like James and Lorenzo, it's lowest hanging fruit, right? We talk about it in sales all the time. I mean, we've obviously got a load of analogies. We're all commercial guys, but it's the lowest hanging fruit. If somebody's looking for your product or service, you can't go wrong there. I mean, look, also Google has the tools. You can search on Google. You can find out how many searches are happening around your product or service, right? So you can also see how big the pie is. We get asked this quite a few times, well, what about, I'm in a different country, I'm in a different space, do I have to physically be there? No, you don't, right? Google, Facebook, Instagram, Snap, TikTok, all of the platforms give you intelligence. You just, they're all self-provisioning, and they have the tools within them to see how big a piece of the pie is at the moment. So you've got a cleaning business, and you say, okay, well, how many people are actually searching for cleaners at the moment, or cleaning houses or cars or commercial spaces, so you have these tools available to you online. And then obviously, as James mentioned, when the time is right and you feel like you've learned a bit, then kind of go out and talk to somebody, and have conversations with multiple people, right? And see how they're kind of going about it. But I honestly, and James said it, cold calling is horrible, right? I think we've all done it. It's amazing when you close a deal, but those 100 that you called before, it's rough, right? But even that, I feel like there's not enough people doing that. There's really not enough people just saying, well, I want to talk to that person. And back in the day, to age myself again, it was a nightmare trying to get a hold of this individual in this organization, knowing that guy or girl is going to be the decision maker. Hanging out in receptions, in lobbies, seeing where they're going to, creepy stalker stuff. Now I just go to LinkedIn, right? Okay, go on LinkedIn, find, you've got a couple of tools now that strip out the data from LinkedIn. I mean, you can approach that individual through an email or through a call and say, hey, how's it going? The tools are there, it's never been a better time, I'd say.
But I have a feeling that the approach is the one that needs a bit of work, and is the one that everybody is missing, because we all get, approached through LinkedIn, through emails, through different formats, but I would say 90% of the time they got wrong the way that they are approaching you. And I think this is what makes the whole difference on how they bring up this message. What is it that they say to create that link and say, you know what, I'm going to dedicate 10 seconds to this guy and see what he's all about. Because the other 100 messages that we get, we just simply don't reply, or because we don't have the time. What is the ingredient that makes that a success? What is it needed to penetrate that barrier, let's say?
Lorenzo, so I'll just jump on this very quickly, and then Andrew can take over. But in terms of, if I get a message on LinkedIn that's longer than 6 lines, I ignore it. Try to give you their entire product portfolio that in 20 minutes to read, that actually makes no sense. And again, a word that Andrew uses a lot is nurturing. I think that whether it's an elevator pitch over the phone or an elevator pitch on LinkedIn or an elevator pitch on whatever it might be, there has to be this, you have to get a gem in the first 2 sentences that you know will react positively to that person you're speaking to, because the number of people, it was funny the other day actually, I got a message on LinkedIn about how I'd been put forward for the Pipe Awards, which were actually pipelines in oil and gas, and that's somebody not reading what pipeline is. And it's like, I said, no thanks, I don't sell pipes. But in terms of the amount of cold emails, cold stuff you get on all sorts of places and on telephones that are relevant within the first 5 seconds, just put you off. You have to be relevant. That's the most important thing. And the whole LinkedIn piece, that in terms of kind of whatever you are selling, you have to look at someone's profile. Okay, where are they from? What are they interested in? Where have they worked? Can you find a personal interaction? Can you find somebody that they know that you know? So there's automatically someone drops the barriers. But if you go, hi James, I'd like to sell you this, your barriers straight away come up. But it has to be a bit more personable, but it has to be short. If someone's interested, then you can send them a longer email with some more information. But if you get a kind of a war and peace on something that actually you lose, well, I do anyway, kind of lose focus in the first 3 sentences, unfortunately for me, that's out.
I feel in a way is that before you make that approach, the key thing would be to establish some sort of a relationship and try to gain that relationship, whether it's through sharing something, a comment on someone's timeline, or sharing a story about something, and let that nurture in a little bit, and then come into the pitch. But if you come in cold with a pitch, I think 99% of the times doesn't go anywhere. Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, LinkedIn at the moment, if the people watching today just go away and start actively involving themselves on LinkedIn, that's probably the best piece of advice that we could all give. That the organic reach on LinkedIn at the moment is the best across any kind of network for free. Okay, so and the worst thing in the world, and we've all experienced it, and you've obviously just said about the Pipe Awards there. Connect. Hey, I want to sell you something. Connect. Hey, I want to. I mean, that's honestly, it's just such a wrong way to go about it. Like you mentioned, you need to kind of be voyeuristic. You need to kind of start liking some things, commenting on some things, creating your own content, starting a conversation. You can't just go in cold there, right? I mean, we basically a bit of wine and dine, right? You want to kind of go out and have a bit of dinner before you kind of close the deal versus, just straight away. I mean, it's really, it's a real challenge where people just obviously immediately jump the gun. It's like, and they don't listen enough. I mean, that's one of the challenges from a salespeople. I think in the past, you have to listen as a salesperson, right? The sales style is consultative. How can I come in and rush you when I know nothing about you, right? Zero. Like James just said, award for the. I mean, I would have gone to that Pipe Awards just so I could have an award that said I had the best pipe. That'd be great. But this really that you need to listen and do your research. Again, back to your audience. Is this person going to be interested in what I have to say? Do they have a need? Do they have a requirement? Can I fix a problem for them? Whatever that may be, yeah?
Now,
and Lorenzo, also, back to Andrew's point about listening is one of the things that was drilled into me kind of very early doors when I used to work for Dell was the famous Kipling poem. That is just simply, it's the what, why, where, when, and how and who. And if you ask those questions, then people will talk to you. People ask close questions where you go, yes, no. Well, you get no information. Ask a question, listen, because you've got 2 of these and 1 of these. Use them in proportion.
Good point. I guess, engaging with clients, engaging with people, key thing as part of this discussion. Now, we have a good question from the audience. It talks about what are the healthy conversion ratios that we should be looking into when managing any pipeline. What are we talking about? What's a healthy conversion ratio, would you say?
Andrew?
Go on, you go for this.
Well, this is the $1,000 question that we always get asked. And I think,
Yeah.
to be honest, because you can say 50%, 10%, 20%, but the reality is you need to look at your own business and go, actually, what do you need to be closing for it to be healthy? Because I think that you can't just say there's a specific number that you need to hit. It might be that if you're selling a $2 million product, that actually the conversion rate can be 1 in 20. But if you're selling a widget, it needs to be kind of 9 out of 10. So you have to really, again, the internal focus, I can't stress enough. You have to know your business before you're going to sell stuff from your business. We work on HubSpot. I've used Salesforce before. There's Dynamics out there in terms of the ability to drive through the pipeline. And the important thing is understanding that you have to manage your pipeline. And one of the things that sometimes frustrates me with salespeople is you put a lead into a CRM or into your Excel spreadsheet and just leave it there. A lead has to move, whether it's moving out or moving in or moving up or moving down. But it has to move, because if you've not spoken to somebody for 2 or 3 weeks, then it might have gone cold again. Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Have you spoken to the right person? So I'm kind of going around the subject here, but I don't think you can really give what is the conversion rate, because it does depend on the product, the service, the price, who you're selling it to, etc. But but the conversion rate has to be set by you as an individual, or as a company, and that has to be KPI'd against your salespeople. Because you say you have to close every other opportunity, or you have to close every 20 opportunities, but it has to be something that you agree with, and that your salespeople are agreed with it as well.
Andrew?
Yeah, no, 100% agree. You know, first of all, those conversion rates have to be realistic. So you've got to ask yourself, you know, like James said, what do I need? Not what do I want? You know, I mean, want is tough, right? 100% of the leads to convert every time. Not going to happen, right? Simple as that. You know, some companies, you know, can be up as high as 60%, 70% close rate. But other companies, as James said, it's like a 10%, 2%. I guess the challenge with that is, you know, from an online environment, when you're running ads and you're running conversion ads, you know, like 3%, 4%, good conversion, 5%, wow, right? You know, but that doesn't really work like that from a sales perspective, because everything is completely different, right? And it could be, yeah. I mean, it's that's a really $1 million question we get asked all the time. But one thing I would say is, James touched upon, you need to be monitoring what that conversion looks like, right? So you mentioned it, James, you know, in the same breath of mentioning Salesforce and Dynamics and HubSpot and Excel. And frankly speaking, most of the time, people's CRM in this part of the world is an Excel sheet. You can't do anything with an Excel sheet, right? And people, oh no, you can do a pivot table. You can do, no, forget it. You need to jump on, you know, a decent CRM. James mentioned we're very involved with HubSpot. HubSpot has a free CRM. You can go out and just get HubSpot for free, and you can use it for free. And there are hundreds of thousands of people that are using it. But what that does is it does start to give you data. So as much as, you know, you can say, well, you know, I speak to this guy and then it takes usually 2 weeks to convert. And I know that if I go in at this price, well, no, put that down in a CRM. And as James said, you know, unless there's movement either in or out, you know, why are you even holding it, right? So this, you have to move and align your tools available to your process.
Lorenzo, just kind of finishing on this subject, the one thing that we've tried to do is that if you're doing say the online marketing and you're getting, say, marketing qualified leads or what have you, the conversion rate will be less. Getting sales qualified leads, the conversion will be more. So what we've tried to do over the past couple of years, and certainly in the last 6 months, is that actually if we're giving you fully qualified leads, your conversion rate is going to be higher. You're not going to have 500, 600, 700 names and numbers to call where people were maybe bored because they were sat in the toilet and said, I'll be interested in it. It's actually where they've gone down the funnel, they've gone further down the sales conversations to actually, we'll deliver a kind of a lead to you where someone's actually shown interest. So the conversion rates will be higher depending on how far you are down that sales funnel.
We're getting people asking the name of the CRM system. They say, can you please repeat the CRM name of the CRM? It's HubSpot, right, guys? Do you? Yeah, can you type it out on the chat?
Yeah, I'll do that now.
So everybody can have.
I mean, that's. I mean, hands down at the moment, I'd say. I mean, it's completely free, so guys can sign up straight away. people are going to be happy. Their phones are going to be ringing in HubSpot. Because you get a lot of alerts. But there's also, I mean, look, HubSpot from the CRM perspective is I mean, one of the most robust and powerful CRMs out there. And obviously there's a whole host of other suites, marketing suite and sales suite, but yeah, get involved with that for sure.
Do you actually help
Lorenzo as well?
startups
So I was just going to say, from my point of view, in terms of from an SME, yes, there are other CRMs, but HubSpot is a perfect solution for the SME model, because you can start for free, then you can upgrade. It may cost you $10, $15 a month extra.
Yeah.
It's a starter CRM that can lead on to a enterprise level CRM. But just to touch on, I'll see some of the questions. One thing we'll do after this call for everybody is we'll summarize this call in a presentation. So things around HubSpot and what we've spoken about and leads, etc. We'll summarize in a presentation that Creative Zone can publish or send out. So we're taking notes as well.
Yeah, and there's a question here that says, hi guys, thank you so much for this super interesting chat. Will you be sending the recording of this webinar? Yes, everybody that is here will be sending them the link with a full video. And as James is explaining, we're going to put together a presentation and we will share all the details of what is being discussed. A lot of good questions. Please keep on sending them. I'm going to try to read them all. A good one here, TikTok. Huh?
Sorry, I'm also saying it's probably also worthwhile that any question we don't get answered here, we can answer them offline and send them through to people as well.
Good point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, connect with me and James on LinkedIn, but try not to sell to us in the first message. Yeah.
Question: TikTok is having a bit of problems with trust at the moment. What's happening with TikTok?
Andrew?
I mean, yeah, TikTok, for those of you that haven't used TikTok, it's a wildly addictive, nightmarish app that you can spend hours on and walk away and realize that you've done nothing except look at people fall over. And I mean, look, there's some antitrust issues at the moment. It's more of a kind of a political environment, but essentially what happened is there was a Russian hacker that stripped out the code and found that TikTok was kind of effectively data mining everything from your phone. So he strongly recommended at that point that, it's removed. So it does things like sets up geographical location, copies things on your clipboard, just things that are irrelevant to actually using an app. But what I would say is that, in all honesty, Facebook tracks everything, Instagram tracks everything, every single app on your phone tracks. It just seems to be politicized at the moment, obviously, over kind of current economical climate. But what I would say from a usage perspective, it's skyrocketing. So here in the Middle East, it's massive, and especially in like Saudi. So we run TikTok campaigns. They've just released their like TikTok business account. So they'll match your spend up to $2,000. So if you put $100 in, they'll match $100 on the platform. And they've just launched their self-provisioning platform. So previously you had to work with an agency like us to advertise on there, but they're just rolling out their self-provisioning platform. So again, like if I wanted to, target, perhaps, people from 18 to 25, local guys or Saudi guy, it would be TikTok, right?
This is so TikTok's purely B2C, Andrew, yeah?
No, so I think the thing is, again, it as strange as it sounds, it leans more to B2C, but at the end of the day, it's about eyeballs, right? So as much as, you look at all the social platforms and you think, well, yeah, B2C, B2B, essentially it's just about eyeballs. So, I mean, as long as you're doing some retargeted campaigns that have interacted with you before, and then you can do it. I mean, I don't recommend, obviously, go back to your point, James, I wouldn't recommend that you spend all your ad budget if you're, producing widgets on TikTok, for sure. But it's just numbers, sheer numbers on the platform. But we use, for example, Snapchat for business. We're generating and targeting, again, individuals, right? Back to your audience, right? At the very beginning. Excellent. Who do you want to target? Who do you want to speak to?
Excellent.
Does that answer the question on TikTok? I mean, I guess it does, right?
Definitely.
But I mean, it's honestly, it's a beautiful waste of time. It really is.
Good. Guys, thank you very much. There's a lot of good questions. I'm trying to address all of them. 150 participants still there. good question maybe out there. Maybe James, you can help on this one. Do you really think podcasts are suitable for all local markets in the UAE? Are some people more visual, some people more oral? Probably yes.
Totally, absolutely. I think whatever anybody says, everybody's visual. Well, not everyone's visual, but in terms of kind of visualizing something, whether it's through voice, but again with a visual element to it, I think it helps you get a message across. I think there's a lot of waste of time podcasts, but certainly I know there's a few guys on the call now, David Boucher and Rob Marinelli, who I know personally spend a lot of time on podcasts from a personal point of view, but certainly I think podcast in the right manner and in the right way to the right audience works. But again, podcasts can get lost because there's probably thousands and thousands of podcasts being delivered every minute of every day of every month. So yeah, again, it has to be specific. There has to be a reason why somebody would watch a podcast. It can't just be, please watch my podcast because I'm great or because today's a Friday. There has to be a hook for someone, because everything we talk about is hooks. There has to be a hook for you to respond. There has to be a hook for you to engage. And that goes with everything, whether it's a message on LinkedIn, an ad on Facebook or a podcast. Everyone's busy. So you have to be able to show somebody that actually a 10-minute podcast is worth watching or listening to. Because if you...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying because if you go on a podcast, a library, there's thousands. Like what makes you from the rest?
A lot of the companies that we have been setting up in the last few months at Creative Zone, many of them are e-commerce companies, e-commerce platforms. The e-commerce industry has boomed, as you know better than us, in the last few years. We have a good question here that talks about what is the best way to generate consumer leads for e-commerce platforms. And I understand that this is a main challenge. I mean, it's great to have an e-commerce platform, but if you don't know the means, if you don't have the capacity of communicating what it is that you offer, you go nowhere, correct? How do we promote these e-commerce platforms?
I think I can take this one. So look, I think first of all, before you even start to drive traffic to your e-commerce site, you need to make sure that you have some tools in place, things like, marketing intelligence tools, cart abandonment, tracking user journey. You must do your homework as far as when you're driving that traffic to the site, what happens to it? Okay, is the user journey easy? Is it easy to navigate? Run some tests, and there's tools out there. You can use things like InspectLet, Hotjar that tracks user tracking. Depending on the platform you're using, Magento or Shopify or WooCommerce, they also have these tools that show cart abandonment and all this. So similar to you need to understand that. Okay, and then obviously once it's a very easy user journey for e-commerce, maximum 3 clicks to kind of convert. When we recommend e-commerce, there's a couple of different angles. So first and foremost, from a Google perspective, it's Google shoppable ads. So you've got when you type in Google, you'll see these shoppable ads that kind of populate across the top. That is a bit of work that's involved, but basically creating an XML feed to your product catalog, as it were, and that kind of starts to populate, and then is dynamically linked to search. So that's a good starting point.
Is that a Google ad on itself? People are having to pay to appear on this little e-commerce, buy these shoes kind of thing?
Exactly, yeah. They're called shoppable ads. So it's running across the very top of search. You can do a Google search now. If you type in iPads in Dubai or iPads in Singapore, you'll see these shoppable ads. Now, the reason the shoppable ads have a better chance is because they list the product and they list the price and the website that it's there. So straight away, you're looking at something, you realize how much it costs, and then ultimately that's a big driver of using that spend online. I'd say that you need to, so that's shoppable ads in Google. Similarly, you can make your Instagram shoppable. So you basically, where you click on a little shopping cart icon and people have the ability to shop on there. So that's another way to look at converting ads. Facebook announced a month ago now, Facebook Shop. So effectively, they're rolling it out. I don't think it's here yet, but Facebook and Instagram will have a shop where you won't even have to leave the Facebook to buy things. So it's a new platform that they're rolling out. So I think that's going to be interesting from an e-commerce perspective. to do that. And then again, target audience, you know, if you're selling whatever, you know, things like Snapchat, things like TikTok, they can still, you know, resonate with people because I'm just browsing through, you know, I'm just flicking. You have to treat that, the social kind of advertising, like us going to the mall or being dragged to the mall by our wives, right? You know, I mean, the amount of times you just buy tat because you're hanging around, and it's similar like that. So I think that's probably where I'd say invest in that.
Excellent.
As well, to make it sticky as well, because I think the number of, certainly over the last 4 or 5 months, because of the situation, the amount of online grocery apps that have come into play, or health and fitness apps, that I've probably tried all of them. And if I can't buy something in 2 or 3 clicks, I'll never use it again. And that's the important thing. Because I know, so there's a couple of friends of mine, one's in the health and fitness kind of area, one's in, well, they're both in the health and fitness area, but different sectors. They both pivoted remarkably in the first probably month of COVID. One of them was Optimal Fitness, where David had a very offline business for years, but managed to pivot to an online business where he was getting 50, 60, 70 cyclists on a ride because it was easy to do, easy to sign up. Another one, MeFit Pro, where they had a full warehouse of kit that was for gyms that hadn't been sold because gyms had closed down. He pivoted to actually start selling to the consumer. That was done through a buy account. It was quick and easy, and they were a success. Whereas I know a number of other people who've tried to go into it, but it's just, the journey has to be easy. Because you can spend a lot of money on getting clicks because you're competing against lots of other people. But the reality is, if once someone's on your site, if they can click and buy quickly and easily, how do Amazon become so popular? Because it's easy. If it's not easy, go back again.
Yeah, I'd say you said it right there, mate. It's not easy. Running an e-commerce store, you have to almost treat it like open your own retail space, you know, and where you put that t-shirt or where you put that cake or wherever, you know, you've got to be intelligently led. Now, the great thing about online is over time, you can track it to the end, basically. But it has to be simple. You know, and just to think about it yourself, you know, why is Amazon so successful? It's not the most attractive website in the world, but they make you spend money. I mean, ultimately with e-commerce as well, it's not just about driving traffic to the site and converting it. Ultimately, what you should be thinking about is, how do I increase my basket value, right? So how do I increase my cart value? That's what you should be looking at as well. So not, well, okay, I've got a customer, but how do I get them back? How do I make them return? You know, and that's where some of the marketing automation can come into play. So somebody comes to the site, they don't buy anything, you know, 10 minutes later, you get a mail in your inbox saying, hey, Andrew, you came on the site today. You know, we saw this great offer, you're interested. So you can start to automate some of this activity, but you need to be thinking about, okay, cool, I've got customers, great, I've got conversions. Now, well, how do I increase their cart value, right? You know, so the customers have bought this, also bought this, you know, there's, or sense of urgency associated to it. We've all seen it on some hotel sites where it's like there's 6 people looking at this hotel property right now, right? You know, there's triggers, right? There's visual triggers. So, you know, when it's even from reduction on things, it's, you know, 199 versus 399. So if you are entering that e-commerce space, I'd strongly recommend you spend a lot of time on Amazon and see how they do it, because quite frankly, they're kind of kings of it. Yeah.
I've been upsold a few times on some of these platforms before, and the best way that I found that works the best is you're about to make the payment for what you've chosen, and then just before clicking on make the payment, you get shown this other thing that they're giving you a 70, 80, 90% discount on that truly that you see this is of value, and you go, well, I must also buy this as well, because, well, you get it and it's so true. It's about how much I can add onto that cart, right?
But also, I think the other thing, sorry, James, the other thing is just, it's not just about the online experience, yeah? So you can have an incredible online experience, and I'm trying to think if I can name them. No, I won't name them. But you can have an incredible online experience, and if your items are not delivered, you know, in the time that it was scheduled, or if the items arrive and they're damaged, if you're unable to return those items, all of these things play into that experience as well. And I think a lot of the time from an e-commerce perspective, there's a lot of focus on the tech, the app, all of this. And then actually it's that last mile that falls off the cliff. you know, because you can have the best experience in the world, but if you're still sitting here, you know, waiting for your iPad to arrive and it's been 3 days, what's going on, guys? Right? You know, it doesn't matter how great the experience was or the price. There's that last. I mean, they talk about it a lot, but I think that again has to, you know, because that's trust. The reason that, you know, a lot of people love cash on delivery here, you know, they choose cash on delivery because basically they don't trust it. They don't trust that they're going to get the products, the items that they paid for. So you know, you've got to think about that as well as a business. Sorry, James.
And back to my point, I think, Lorenzo, this is the intelligent marketing piece. Just because, like, as you say, I'm sure you've been upsold and cross-sold a number of times when you're only going to go in to buy a pair of trainers, but you ended up buying trainers, socks, tops, boots, everything, because you targeted. And then the one word I would use from Andrew is the execution. So ideas are great in terms of all the tech stuff, but if you can't execute, especially on an online business, you can ruin your business very, very quickly if you cannot execute. Because it's a day and age when you are up against Amazon, Noon, etc. If you can't execute, then these guys execute.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, guys, we have another 5 minutes left out of this webinar. I keep on bringing a few questions. There's a topic coming out in one of the questions that we haven't addressed. SEO, engagement with people on sort of more organic places. What's the role of SEO in the whole equation of pulling leads?
Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, sure, mate. Look, I think it's just, it needs to be done. That's first and foremost. It's just a basic. So, I mean, obviously SEO, search engine optimization, making sure that you're present in that Google space, it's crucial to delivering results. There's various ways, and it's kind of moving. So essentially, if you look at how Google, you know, pulls these results, essentially it's Google's not a search engine anymore. Google is an answers engine, right? So you ask Google a question and it gives you an answer, right? So ultimately what you want to be doing as a business is you want to start answering those questions. Yeah. It's something that we've successfully done at Nexa. You know, over the past 7 years, we've been producing content that answers people's questions. So when people are searching for services, asking questions around price, you'll see that we kind of populate and bubble to the top. But it's really, you've got to kind of have this mindset that essentially Google is an answers engine. If you don't like the answer, you ask it a different way. So what you want to start doing is populating content and getting content up. There is obviously keywords and backlinking, but really it's focusing on content. I mean, we now actually don't talk about search engine optimization. We've coined the phrase search engine ownership. There's actually Amit, our CEO, that came up with that. And you know, ranking in Google is not enough anymore. You need to own and dominate that space. And a lot of that is driven through the content that you produce, the questions that you answer. So yes, from a technical perspective, you need to make sure your website is, you know, visible to Google, right? You've got to do the basics, the H1, H2, the meta tags, those things have got to be there. And there's plenty of tools out there to help you. There's SEO Quake. There's actually a HubSpot SEO grader, if you type it in as well, that will give you, you know, real advice. Hey, listen, you're missing this headed structure, add this. So if you get those basics right, then it's about engaging, you know, with the right partner or yourself. But it has to be done regularly. You know, Google loves content. It's kind of like Cookie Monster with cookies, right? So it just loves content. It eats it up. So yeah, I'd say, but SEO, don't ignore SEO. Even from an e-commerce perspective, you should have an SEO strategy in place to ultimately start to rank. I mean, you look now for anything, even though we're here in the Middle East, you'll still see things popping up for Amazon, Amazon.com, 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 when you're buying things. Yeah.
Andrew, back to your point as well, because depends which space you're in. It can become incredibly expensive to buy advertising space on Google. Because you are competing against people who've got endless pots of money. So the only way you're going to actually compete with these guys is for the organic search, and that is through the SEO stuff. Because you're never going to compete against an Amazon if you're trying to sell trainers. You have to do it organically, and that's through the SEO, the blogs on your website, As I say, Nexa are very good at that. I'm not so much, but in terms of it's critical if you are to compete against these big guys, so that on the organic search you're high up on page one. Mm-hmm. But it is possible with the right strategy.
All right, guys, we're getting to the end of it. James, how can you help startups, entrepreneurs, business owners on this chat, on this group? What is it that you can do for them? What is the sort of services that you can help them with?
Well, I think from certainly our side, and we kind of come as a package, really, myself and Andrew now. We'd love to have a chat with anybody. Kind of, there's no cost to it. Just you can share our details. I think one thing that COVID's taught us all is that we're all kind of in this together. And I think if we don't help each other out, then everyone's going to. So I'm more than happy to share some of my ideas, as is Andrew as well, just to talk to somebody about, okay, what are people facing out there at the moment? What are the difficulties? What are the obstacles? I'm not going to say that I'll make a life-changing kind of moment for them, but certainly more than happy to chat, talk about what we can do from a lead generation perspective, online, offline, both together, etc. But we're here to support the Creative Zone SME community as much as we can, because we're a Creative Zone company ourselves. So yeah, it's all about supporting these times. So please share my details and Andrew's details, and happy to chat to anybody.
Indeed, yeah, we will be doing that, sharing everybody's details. We'll send an email with the presentation, the video. We'll share your details on the email so everybody can get in touch. Andrew, your final thoughts?
Yeah, look, as James said, we're here to help. I think one of the most important things about starting any new business is to generate business itself. So I mean, I think, you know, along with the furniture and the chairs and the laptops and the MacBooks, you need to generate business, and the till needs to ring, as it were. So we're happy to, you know, as James said, you know, jump on a discovery Zoom, you know, and run through, have a bit of a chat, and then look how we can help. I think what we offer, you know, collectively is just, you know, a real solution that no one else is kind of offering out there. So happy to have just a chat, or potentially kind of work with the community as well. Yeah.
I would suggest, even Andrew and James, you can put your email down on the chat box there, so that people can grab it already from there. And we will also be shooting an email to everybody that attended this with your details. But just in case, if somebody already wants to get in touch with you guys, you'll find their details there, James and Andrew. To everybody, to all the attendees, thank you so much for being here. To all Creative Zone clients, as always, it's a pleasure to see you all. We're here to help and support everybody through their business journey. We're not only just about business setup, we're here to support people through their entire journey of setting up their business and being successful. So again, James, Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us. It's been a great webinar. We took a lot of good information, and we look forward to continue conversations with you offline and see what else we can do together.
Thanks, Lorenzo, for organizing.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Thank you, guys. Thanks for Creative Zone as well.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.